The Vexeri High Commander's laughter echoed through the United Earth Council chamber, his holographic form towering over the assembled representatives. His crystalline exoskeleton gleamed with an artificial perfection that matched his empire's philosophy of mechanical supremacy. "You send us plants as proof of your technological achievement." The translator rendered his clicks and whistles into Earth standard, but couldn't mask the derision in his tone. "While we traverse the stars in ships of quantum-forged metal, you grow gardens and tend to your organic computers. Perhaps we should have contacted your planet's insects instead. They too build structures from biological materials." Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's chief biotechnology officer, remained perfectly still in her chair, made from living wood that adjusted its shape microscopically to maintain her optimal posture. The neural interface woven through her cerebral cortex, threads of modified fungal mycelium, transmitted her calm to the rest of the council. They had expected this reaction. After all, the Vexeri Empire had spent 10,000 years forcing the universe to bow to their will through machines and mathematics. They couldn't comprehend that humanity had chosen a different path. "High Commander," she spoke, her voice steady, "we appreciate your assessment of our technological development. However, we believe you may be operating under some misconceptions about the nature of advancement." The Vexeri's crystalline form shimmered with what their cultural attaches had learned to recognize as amusement. "Misconceptions. Your world has barely achieved system-wide colonization. Your ships still rely on photosynthesis for power generation. You haven't even begun to harvest your star for energy." "Because we never needed to," Sarah replied. "High Commander, the sample of modified coral we sent you wasn't meant to impress you with its simplicity. It was meant to demonstrate that we have mastered something your empire has never achieved: the ability to work in partnership with life itself." The High Commander's form flickered slightly, the first sign of uncertainty. "Partnership with inferior organic systems is inefficient. They are unpredictable, unreliable." Sarah smiled, touching the living wood of her chair. Throughout the chamber, other council members did the same, a gesture that made the Vexeri representatives shift uncomfortably. "Life adapts, High Commander. Life learns, life evolves. While your empire has spent millennia building bigger machines, we have spent centuries learning to communicate with the most sophisticated technology in the universe, the 4 billion years of research and development we call evolution." Pretty words to disguise primitive methods, the High Commander dismissed. "If you wish to join the civilized species of this galaxy, you will need to abandon such obsolete thinking. The Vexeri Empire stands ready to guide humanity toward proper technological development, once you accept the superiority of our ways." The council chamber fell silent. Sarah stood, her movement causing ripples through the living architecture of the room. Walls of engineered coral that processed carbon dioxide more efficiently than any mechanical scrubber, floors of modified bamboo that generated power from every footstep, ceiling panels of bioluminescent algae that adjusted their light output to match human circadian rhythms. "We appreciate your offer, High Commander, but we must decline. However, to demonstrate our commitment to interstellar dialogue, we would like to send a single ship to your capital world. One vessel, carrying a small delegation of human representatives. Surely the mighty Vexeri Empire isn't afraid of a single ship from a primitive species." The High Commander's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been laughter. "One ship? Your entire fleet wouldn't concern us, but very well. Send your biological curiosity. Perhaps seeing true technological advancement firsthand will help you understand your proper place in the galaxy." As the hologram faded, Sarah remained standing. The neural interface transmitted the thoughts of the entire council: anticipation, resolve, and just a touch of satisfaction. They had expected the Vexeri's arrogance, had counted on it. For a species so devoted to mechanical perfection, they had a remarkably predictable psychological flaw. They couldn't imagine being surpassed by those they considered inferior. "Send word to the Gaia." Sarah spoke to the room itself, and the living walls pulsed in acknowledgement. Tell her it's time to demonstrate what partnership with nature can achieve. In high orbit above Earth, in a specially maintained ecological dock, the ESS Gaia stirred. She wasn't built. She had been grown. From a fusion of coral, fungal networks, and engineered bacteria, humanity had created not just a ship, but a new form of life. Her hull was living tissue harder than diamond. Her neural networks more complex than any computer. Her weapons not weapons at all, but extensions of natural defense mechanisms evolved over millions of years. The Vexeri thought they were going to teach humanity about technological advancement. They were about to learn that nature had developed solutions to problems their machines couldn't even comprehend. The ESS Gaia moved through space like no ship the galaxy had ever seen. Her hull, a masterwork of engineered coral and symbiotic organisms, rippled with iridescent patterns that mimicked the deep-sea creatures of Earth. But these weren't mere decorative bioluminescent displays. They were her primary method of communication with her crew. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood in what other species would call a bridge, but the Gaia's crew knew better. This wasn't a control room. It was a synapse junction, where human consciousness merged with the ship's vast neural network. The floor beneath her feet pulsed with living energy, mycological networks transmitting data faster than any fiber optic cable. Status report. Maya spoke, though she didn't need to. The neural interface implanted at the base of her skull could have transmitted the request directly. But like many of the crew, she maintained certain verbal commands as a matter of comfort and tradition. The walls rippled with patterns of blue and green. Dr. James Chen, the ship's chief biologist and Sarah's brother, interpreted the display. Gaia reports all systems are in harmony. The new photosynthetic arrays have fully matured, and energy production is at 143% of expected capacity. Maya nodded, watching as the massive Vexeri escort fleet surrounded them. The crystalline ships gleamed like artificial stars, each one a testament to mechanical perfection. Their escorts had been scanning the Gaia continuously since they entered Vexeri space, and Maya could imagine their confusion. They still can't figure out how we're powering our movement, Lieutenant Aisha Patel, the navigation specialist, said with a slight smile. Their scans keep bouncing off the living hull. Every time they think they've identified our technology, Gaia's surface cells adapt and present them with something new to puzzle over. The Gaia's intelligence manifested as a shimmer of golden light in the center of the synapse junction. Unlike the artificial intelligences the Vexeri used to control their ships, Gaia's consciousness had grown organically, emerging from the complex interactions of her biological systems. She didn't speak in words, but in patterns of light, color, and biochemical signals that her crew had learned to interpret as naturally as breathing. "They're hailing us again," James announced, as patterns of red rippled across the walls. "Same message as before. They're demanding to know how we're maintaining our barrier fields without any detectable power source." Maya allowed herself a small smile. "Send our standard response. The ESS Gaia acknowledges your communication and reminds the Vexeri Empire that we are operating in accordance with the diplomatic agreement." The frustration was evident in the Vexeri ship's behavior. Their formation had tightened over the past hours, their scanning beams becoming more intense. They had expected to escort a primitive vessel, to demonstrate their superiority over Earth's biological technology. Instead, they found themselves unable to understand even the basic principles by which the Gaia operated. "They're scanning us with gamma rays now," Aisha reported, "trying to penetrate deeper into our structure." The walls pulsed with what the crew had learned to recognize as amusement. The Gaia's outer layers were already adapting, her living cells shifting their molecular structure to absorb and redirect the gamma radiation. In fact, she was using their scans to supplement her energy reserves, turning their attempts to unveil her secrets into literal fuel for her systems. "Approaching Vexeri Prime," Aisha announced. Through the living viewing ports, not windows, but transparent sections of the hull that could alter their properties at will, they could see the Vexeri homeworld. It was a planet of geometric perfection, its surface covered in precisely arranged cities that gleamed with metallic brilliance. The Gaia's response was immediate and instinctive. Her hull began to produce new pigments, changing color to match the solar radiation of this star system. Photosynthetic efficiency increased by 12%, and new neural pathways formed to process the unique electromagnetic fields generated by Vexari technology. "They're directing us to a docking station," James said, interpreting another pattern of lights. "It's designed for their crystalline ships. The interface won't be compatible with our systems." Maya's smile widened slightly. "It doesn't need to be, Gaia." The ship's consciousness pulsed with understanding. As they approached the docking station, the living hull began to extend microscopic filaments, organic tendrils, that would interface with the Vexari technology in ways the Empire's engineers had never imagined possible. "Their traffic control is demanding we follow standard docking protocols," Aisha reported. "Inform them that we are following our protocols," Maya replied. "The ESS Gaia knows exactly what she's doing." As they watched, the ship's biological systems began to interact with the Vexari docking station. Where the Empire expected mechanical clamps and electronic interfaces, they would find something entirely different. A demonstration of how life itself could adapt to any challenge. The Vexari were about to learn that their mechanical perfection was no match for 4 billion years of evolutionary problem-solving. And this was just the beginning of humanity's response to their mockery. The Vexari High Command's crystalline architecture towered above the ESS Gaia's docking point, its geometric perfection a stark contrast to the organic curves of the Earth vessel. Inside their command center, Chief Engineer Xerix 427 was experiencing what organic beings might call a headache. "Impossible," they chittered, their crystalline appendages tapping rapidly across holographic displays. "The human vessel is growing." Supreme Commander Vex 001 shifted their attention from the capital skyline to the screens. "Explain." "The biological material they call a hull is extending microscopic filaments throughout our docking system. But it's not damaging or infiltrating. It's harmonizing, adapting our power distribution network to be 43% more efficient. We didn't give them access to our systems. They aren't hacking. The dock is simply working better." On the Gaia's synapse junction, Maya Rodriguez watched the Vexari's confusion ripple across their networks. The ship's neural interfaces translated their encrypted communications into patterns of light and color that danced across the living walls. "They're attempting to isolate us," James Chen reported, his hands moving through the bioluminescent displays, "shutting down all connections to their central systems." Maya nodded. "How's Gaia responding?" The answer came not in words, but in a wave of green phosphorescence that swept through the chamber. The ship's consciousness radiated what could only be described as amused patience. "She's already learned everything she needed to," James translated. "Their entire technological infrastructure is based on crystalline computing, elegant but rigid. They can't comprehend how our systems work because they're looking for patterns they understand. Electronics, quantum states, digital signals." Lieutenant Patel's station pulsed with new information. "They're scanning us again, but differently this time. They've realized their standard technological scans are useless. Now they're trying to analyze us as if we were a biological specimen." "Closer," Maya mused, "but still missing the point. Gaia isn't just biological. She's the next step in evolution, a synthesis of nature and human innovation." The ship's consciousness flared briefly, and all around them, the living walls began to shift. Not dramatically. The Vexari wouldn't even notice unless they were watching at the microscopic level. But the change was profound. The Gaia was adapting, her cellular structure reorganizing to better process the unique radiation of Vexari Prime's sun, her neural networks expanding to account for new environmental inputs. A sudden burst of red light indicated an incoming transmission. The Vexari High Command appeared as a hologram in the center of the junction, their crystalline forms refracting the ship's bioluminescence. "Human vessel, The Supreme Commander's translated voice carried poorly concealed agitation. Our sensors indicate unauthorized modifications to our docking systems. Explain your actions. Maya stepped forward, knowing the Gaia would project her image to their command center. Supreme Commander, we haven't modified anything. We're simply allowing our ship to achieve harmony with her environment. It's what living things do. Your vessel is affecting our systems without authorization. No more than a tree affects the soil it grows in, Maya replied calmly. Life doesn't ask permission to improve its environment. It simply does what it has evolved to do: adapt, grow, and enhance the world around it. The Supreme Commander's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been anger or fear. You will cease these unauthorized biological processes immediately. That would be like asking you to stop your atoms from maintaining their crystalline structure, Maya explained. The Gaia doesn't interface with technology the way your ships do. She doesn't hack or override or control. She grows. She learns. She harmonizes. Right now, she's learning from every photon of your sun, every quantum fluctuation in your atmosphere, every signal passing through your networks. As if to emphasize her point, the Gaia's hull rippled with new patterns, her outer layer now perfectly tuned to the local electromagnetic environment. Power efficiency had increased another 22%, and new neural pathways were forming to process the wealth of information flowing through the Vexeri capital systems. This is impossible, the chief engineer interrupted. Biological systems cannot achieve this level of complexity. The processing power alone would require. Would require what? Maya asked. A quantum computer the size of a planet. That's because you're thinking in terms of artificial computation. But consider, every cell in a living organism processes information. Every molecule participates in the dance of life. The Gaia isn't a ship with a computer system. She's a living entity with over 4 billion years of evolutionary algorithms running in every cell of her being. The hologram flickered as the Vexari struggled to process this information. Their entire civilization was built on the premise that mechanical perfection was the pinnacle of achievement. The idea that biology could not just match but exceed their technology struck at the very foundation of their beliefs. Perhaps, Maya continued softly, it's time we had a real discussion about the nature of technological advancement. Not as superior and inferior species, but as two civilizations who have taken very different paths to the stars. The Gaia's consciousness pulsed in agreement, her living systems continuing their endless dance of adaptation and growth. She was proving what humanity had discovered long ago, that the most advanced technology isn't about dominating nature, but about learning to grow alongside it. Alarms resonated through the crystalline spires of Vexeri Prime as their capital's power grid underwent an unprecedented transformation. The Gaia's influence had spread far beyond the docking station, her biological processes inspiring cascading changes throughout the city's infrastructure. Energy efficiency has increased by 78% across all sectors. Chief Engineer Zurich's 427 reported, their crystalline form vibrating with a mixture of awe and terror. The grid is healing itself, correcting inefficiencies we never knew existed. Supreme Commander Vex-001 stood motionless before the massive display showing their capital city. Where once there were rigid lines of power distribution, now organic patterns of energy flow pulsed like blood through veins. Their perfectly ordered system was becoming something else, something alive. How? They demanded. How can primitive biological technology achieve this? On the Gaia's synapse junction, Maya watched the transformation through the ship's living sensors. The walls pulsed with patterns of gold and green, indicating success and harmony. They still don't understand, James Chen observed, his hands dancing through holographic displays projected from bioluminescent panels. They see the Gaia's influence as an invasion, a corruption of their perfect system. They can't comprehend that she's showing them a better way. Maya nodded. 4 billion years of evolution created systems more efficient than anything artificial intelligence could design. The Gaia isn't replacing their technology. She's teaching it how to evolve. Through their neural interface, they felt the ship's consciousness expand, reaching out not to control or dominate, but to share. Every cell in her being was a testament to nature's solution to complex problems. Photosynthesis more efficient than any solar panel, neural networks more adaptive than any computer, molecular machines more precise than any nanofactory. A new hologram materialized in the junction, the HFY Science Council, their crystalline forms reflecting the ship's bioluminescence in fractals of light. Your vessel, the chief scientist's translated voice, carried an unmistakable note of fascination. It's not just adapting to our environment. It's teaching our systems to adapt as well. This violates everything we understood about technological development. No, Maya replied gently. It validates something humanity learned centuries ago. True advancement doesn't come from imposing order on nature, but from learning to work in harmony with it. The Gaia's consciousness flared, projecting images throughout the junction. Earth's cities, where buildings were grown rather than built, their living walls processing pollution and generating energy. Orbital habitats that evolved alongside their inhabitants, adapting to provide exactly what their populations needed. Spacecraft that weren't cold machines but living entities, each one unique, each one constantly growing and learning. Impossible, one of the council members chittered. The computational requirements alone. You're thinking in binary, James interrupted. In artificial terms, life doesn't compute, it exists. Every molecule in a living system is simultaneously processor, memory, and program. The Gaia doesn't need massive computers because every cell in her body is processing information. Every molecule is participating in the network. As if to demonstrate, the ship's hull began to shimmer with new patterns. The HFY watched in astonishment as their own energy grid began to mirror these patterns, power flowing more efficiently, systems working in harmony rather than rigid isolation. Your entire civilization is built on the premise that progress means imposing order on chaos, Maya continued. But life, nature itself, shows us that the most perfect systems arise from chaos finding its own order. Evolution isn't a programmer writing code. It's countless small changes building upon each other, creating solutions more elegant than any conscious design. The Science Council's holograms flickered as they processed this information. In the background, they could see their capital cities' systems continuing to transform, becoming more organic, more efficient, more alive. The choice was never between biological and mechanical, Maya explained. The real breakthrough came when humanity stopped trying to replace nature and started learning from it instead. Every problem we needed to solve, energy production, computation, space travel, nature had already developed solutions for. We just had to learn how to grow them rather than build them. Through their neural interface, the crew felt the Gaia's satisfaction. Her living systems had done more than demonstrate humanity's technological advancement. They had shown the HFY an entirely new way of thinking about progress itself. Your ship, the chief scientist said slowly, could it teach us? Could we learn to grow such technology? Maya smiled. That's why we're here. Not to prove superiority, but to share a different path. The Gaia isn't just a ship, she's a seed. And she's showing you how your own technology can evolve into something greater than the sum of its parts. Around them, the living walls pulsed with patterns of welcome and possibility. The Gaia's consciousness reached out, ready to share the lessons humanity had learned through centuries of partnership with nature. The age of purely mechanical technology was ending, and something far more wonderful was about to begin. 1 month after the Gaia's arrival, HFY Prime had changed beyond recognition. The rigid geometric patterns of its cities had softened, organic curves blending with crystalline structures as their technology learned to grow rather than simply exist. In the heart of the capital, the Supreme Council chamber had been transformed into a garden of living crystal, where HFY and human representatives gathered to formalize their new alliance. Maya Rodriguez stood beside the Gaia's exterior, now seamlessly integrated with the docking station that had become a hybrid of mechanical precision and organic adaptability. The ship's hull pulsed with patterns of satisfaction as new shoots of crystalline organic composite materials reached toward Vexari Prime's sun. Remarkable, Supreme Commander Vex-001 observed, their crystalline form now containing threads of living material that enhanced their neural processing. In 1 month, your ship has triggered changes that would have taken us millennia to achieve, if we had ever conceived of them at all. The Gaia merely showed your systems what was possible, Maya replied. The changes came from within your own technology, once it was given the freedom to adapt and grow. Around them, the capital hummed with new energy. The rigid power grid had evolved into a living network that responded to the city's needs like a nervous system. Buildings that were once static now grew and shifted to maximize energy efficiency and accommodate their inhabitants' requirements. Even the Vexari themselves had begun to change, their crystalline bodies gradually incorporating organic elements that enhanced their natural abilities. Dr. James Chen approached, accompanied by Chief Scientist Surya 925, both examining a holographic display of DNA strands intertwined with crystalline structures. The synthesis is proceeding faster than we anticipated, James reported. The Vexari's crystalline technology is proving to be an ideal medium for organic integration. Because we were never truly separate from nature, Surya 925 added, their voice carrying new harmonics made possible by their partially organic vocal structures. We thought we had transcended biology, but we had merely imprisoned ourselves in a crystalline cage of our own design. The Gaia's consciousness rippled through her neural network, sharing the moment with her crew. She had grown too, incorporating elements of Vexari crystal technology into her living systems. The result wasn't a compromise between biological and mechanical, but something entirely new, a glimpse of what was possible when different evolutionary paths converged and learned from each other. We called you primitive, Supreme Commander Vex-001 admitted, watching as a newly grown crystal spire adjusted its structure to better channel the afternoon light. We thought advancement meant replacing the organic with the artificial. Instead, you showed us that true power lies in understanding the wisdom inherent in life itself. Maya smiled, feeling the Gaia's agreement through their neural link. Humanity faced the same choice centuries ago. We could have continued trying to conquer nature, to replace it with machines. Instead, we chose to learn from it, to grow with it. Every problem we encountered, every challenge we faced, nature had already developed solutions through billions of years of evolution, and now both our civilizations will evolve together. Surya 925 said, their crystalline form refracting the sunlight in patterns that mimicked the Gaia's bioluminescence. Already, our combined research teams are discovering possibilities that neither of us could have imagined alone. Above them, the first of the new hybrid vessels was taking shape in orbit. Not built, but grown from a fusion of Earth's biological engineering and Vexari crystal technology. Each ship would be unique, alive in its own way, capable of adapting to challenges and learning from experience. They were the first fruits of a partnership that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what technology could be. The Gaia's consciousness expanded, touching the minds of all present through the neural networks that now permeated the city. She shared images of the future, vast gardens of living crystal spreading across the stars, ships that were more like seeds than machines, civilizations growing together instead of competing for dominance. It was a future where the line between natural and artificial had dissolved, where evolution itself had been understood as the greatest technology of all. We came here because you mocked our ways, Maya said softly, but we stayed because we saw the potential for something greater than either of our civilizations could achieve alone. The Gaia didn't just bring Earth's technology to your world. She planted a seed of change that will continue to grow long after we're gone. Supreme Commander Vex-001 nodded, their crystalline form catching the light of their sun in ways that would have been impossible a month ago. And we will nurture that seed, watching it grow into forms we cannot yet imagine. Perhaps that is the true measure of advancement, not in what we can build or control, but in what we can help to grow and evolve. As the sun set over the transformed capital, the Gaia's hull shimmered with patterns of possibility. She had come as humanity's response to mockery, but she had become something far more important. A bridge between civilizations, a teacher of new ways, a living proof that the future belonged not to those who sought to dominate nature, but to those who learned to grow alongside it. In the end, humanity's greatest achievement wasn't in proving their superiority, but in showing that true power came from understanding that we are all, organic and mechanical alike, evolution's children. And together, we could grow into something greater than we ever imagined possible.